Kiki Classic Rock.
He grew up alongside his famous grandparents, Ozzie and Harriet, and his dad, Ricky Nelson, was the teen heartthrob. Him and his brother, Matthew, fell into the same path as their dad to create their own teen heartthrob status, and 30 years have passed since the release of their double platinum debut album, After the Rain, which gave us the #1 hit, Love and Affection, and he's the guy who really just gets cuter and cuter. Singer, aspiring chef, and the guy who brings us the good news, Gunnar Nelson.
Hey, nice to meet you, and thank you so much for having me on your show.
Well, you know what? Thank you. We totally appreciate it, but I got to ask you, is it weird for me to say you're cute? I mean, and I apologize, but really, I listened, of course, grew up listening to you and your brother in the 90s, and you guys are amazing.
Oh, thank you so much. No, it's such a compliment, and I know that this is radio here. You can't see me blush, but I am, and thank you for that. That's very kind. It's one of those things that I've heard about Matthew, not necessarily about me. So this is kind of refreshing. But
oh, come on!
I know, I'm kidding. But just coming from a father that I had, my dad was like otherworldly good looking.
Hot.
Like Zoolander, really, really, really stupid good looking.
Yeah.
And for all the youngsters out there, please just Google Ricky Nelson images, and you'll see what I mean. But
crazy.
But it's pretty interesting. We actually released our music back in the day. We had no idea that our image back then was going to make such a splash like it did. We looked like a couple of hot Swedish chicks with hair down to our butt, and it was just kind of one of those things where we were just trying to make a mark in the very beginning and get noticed because we were a brand new band. We had no guarantee whatsoever that we were going to have any success.
Right.
And it was a very visual era at the time. MTV was considered the biggest radio station in the world at the time. And, you really needed to capture people's attention very quickly. And so that's what we did. Everybody else was kind of like dressing down, and no one was going to believe that Matthew and I were from the streets anyway. So we kind of went the opposite way. We kind of dressed in Technicolor, and we tried to be as outrageous as possible. And it was kind of a blessing and a curse, because being known as the guys with the long blonde hair is really cool.
Yep.
and stuff. And frankly, at my age, I'm really grateful to still have long hair, let alone hair at all. So that's kind of a cool thing. But back then, times were different, and everybody kind of lived for the new releases of their favorite bands coming out, and we're just really glad that that's kind of like the era that we actually started our public presentation, at least. We actually started since we were 6 years old with playing music, but actually being really public about it when we were 21, and that was really a great time to have a trip that was really appealing to a lot of girls out there. That's why we started making music in the first place, after all,
What other reason would there be, really?
Oh, yeah, I know. It's kind of like a great thing. Back then, you play guitar, you got the chicks, and that was kind of fun. Nowadays, people are like making loops and rapping and stuff, but back then, man, it was all about the guitar.
I think it still is, though. A lot of us still really like that guitar.
I'm in agreement, too, but then again, I'm biased. I'm a guitar player.
Yeah. Now, Gunnar, does it feel like 30 years, though, since you guys...
No, actually, it really does. No, it's actually amazing. The thing about doing what I do, and again, it's something I feel really grateful for. I'm blessed to be able to do it. It's all I ever wanted to do, was be able to write and perform music for people, and I've done that my entire life. So that's amazing. And the other side of that is it's kind of like Groundhog Day when you're out touring. The kind of shows that we do now, we play about, in a non-COVID era, we did about 100 shows a year, and it's got us gone pretty much 250 days a year with travel, but you're so focused on getting your job done,
right,
that before you know it, it's kind of like having a radio show, Kiki. You do a radio show, and then you put your head up and you go, I've been doing it a day at a time, concentrating on the work, and where did that last decade go?
Mm-hmm.
And that's what's going on. But I think that really does happen when you love what you do. You really enjoy what you do. My grandpa had a great quote. He said, doing what you love to do for a living and getting paid for, it's like having a license to steal. And I kind of feel like we've been thieves for 30 years, and it really has. It's just been a blink.
For real. Do you ever stand today? Do you stand anywhere and go, what just happened? I mean, that was such a great time.
Well, yeah, I mean, I totally do. You know, the thing that's remarkable, I mean, I played thousands of shows, and I remember every single venue. I remember every show. And there's always something notable about every place I've ever played. I remember the fans that I meet. I'm a foodie, so I remember, the great food I had in a particular city.
Jeez.
It's really, truly been an adventure. So, that part of it is really cool. I mean, to me, I had a lot of the jobs that we've all had when we were younger and working our way through high school and stuff. And I had enough, using air quotes here, normal jobs to realize I don't have the constitution for that. I don't have the fortitude to go to the same gig in the same cubicle every single day. And I've got nothing but respect for people that do that because I don't have the discipline to do that. That's real work to me. But I never felt like I've really worked a day in my life. It's felt like effort, don't get me wrong.
Yeah.
I mean, there's a lot that goes into this, and you got to in any kind of creative endeavor, in an industry that's creative, you have to love what you do.
Absolutely.
You have to genuinely love it because the peaks and valleys are so extreme.
Mm-hmm.
And you can honestly, you can make a lot more money these days doing a lot of other things. So it's not about that.
Right.
It's really about connecting with people for me. And it's really about, I know it sounds trite, but it's really about improving people's lives and making them, like in the era that we're in right now, forget the election year and the pandemic and the politics and all of the financial stress and the emotional challenge of keeping your head straight and all stuff. My job, this is when we're supposed to shine. Someone that does what you do, someone that does what I do, this is what we were made to do, is to make people feel better when they're otherwise getting assaulted from every direction by things that make them feel crappy. And to me, I think that's just a wonderful calling to have.
Well, and you do have that because starting on March 21st of this year, you started doing Good News with Gunnar. So what made you sit down and go, you know what, I'm going to turn the camera on and I'm going to just do this? What happened there?
Thank you for saying that. It was one of those things where, like everybody else, I was watching mainstream media, and it didn't happen all at once. It was kind of like, it's kind of like being in a toxic relationship that has, it's punctuated by a lot of good moments, so it gets really confusing. And you feel kind of like, uncertain and codependent. You don't know if you really should be leaving that relationship, but you don't feel 100% fulfilled. That's kind of what it felt like to me at the beginning of all of this. And then when I looked around and I saw people losing their livelihoods that perhaps their families had worked generations to build, it was really depressing for me. And then I realized that, I felt like a guy that went from doing my part to, quote, flatten the curve to being somebody who was on house arrest who never committed a crime. And I didn't realize how difficult it was to keep your mind straight and your heart straight, even doing something as comfortable, from a distance that you would think, as staying at home. I'm a father. I've got 3 beautiful daughters, and, watching them want to socialize and want to continue their lives that way and handle all of this so elegantly, despite all of the challenges, it just kind of made me feel a little bummed out. So I thought, okay, well, maybe what I should do, other than trying to be of service to other people, is maybe I can be in this land of confusion. I can be a guy that goes to the source, that really honestly digs deep and goes to the data, like the numbers of things. And it started out pretty much an idea just giving people information on something we didn't know anything about at the time, which was the whole COVID thing.
Yeah.
And, just going to the source of what everybody was reporting on and stuff, and getting getting the straight information for people. And then it kind of developed from there into, little thoughts and feelings that I had, little tips and tricks to keep people's spirits up, to inspire them a little bit, maybe come up with a little piece. And then I went, oh, yeah, good news. Maybe I can do that. Maybe I can be the one source for people to turn to when everything else they seem to hear and read about is depressing and terrifying, I could just talk about, something cool that happened in the world that day, or some spot of hope in, let's say, for COVID, for example, in the therapeutics, or any breakthroughs, or more information that they got, because you tend to be less afraid of things when you know more about it. So and here we are, and it's been 3/4 of a year later, and I started. Just on a one-off, I did a post about cooking hacks because I'm an aspiring chef, and man, it got so much feedback that was positive, because I realized, my gosh, that's right. People are doing two things in this era of staying home. Believe it or not, the guitar has had a banner year as far as sales are concerned.
Isn't that crazy? Because
guitars and Gibson guitars have sold more guitars this year than ever in their history, because people are home, kind of bored, wanting something to do, bored in the house bored, and they're learning how to play guitar, and they're also, of course, cooking, because they're not going out and risking that whole thing. So for the first time, there's so many people that are out there that are learning how to cook and barnstorm in their kitchen, and I just kind of have done a pivot, and so I'm doing kind of a combination of both, little updates on music, little updates on food, little updates on the world that make people feel good. And you know what? It just makes me feel like I'm doing just something, getting involved in some way. And some of the response has been really cool, which I'm of course, really grateful for.
It totally has to be. And I do have to point out, though, your daughters are probably handling this whole thing so eloquently because of you and your wife. You're great parents. That's why they're doing such a great job with it, because it comes from a good place. And I have to say,
thank you, man. Thank you for saying that. They're my pride and joy. They're awesome.
They're adorable. And the other thing, though, I find it interesting. The other day, you were just kind of laying it out, saying, listen, I've been depressed. And I just said, no, I'm not going to be depressed anymore. So you can't be either.
I crawled into a funk. I got to be honest with you. I really did. Things just got so dark. I woke up one day and it didn't even feel like I woke up in my own country. For real, I've been all over the world. I've traveled since I was a baby.
Yeah.
And it just didn't feel like what I always thought my country was supposed to be. And, I take great pains to not get political at all. Mm-hmm. It's no one's business but my own. Right. Okay. I'm not one of these people who's in an industry where I feel like my opinion on things is more valid than anybody else's. I left Hollywood for a reason 25 years ago. I moved to Nashville. And, all of my people are people that take 2 showers a day, not one. They actually work. They get up in the morning. They do their thing, and they love their family, and they work really hard.
Yeah.
And I just had so many friends in my industry that I grew up with in L.A. that were so disconnected from most people that are out there just trying to do the best they can and, raise their families and stay positive and stay healthy and all of those things. And of course, have a future to look forward to that's compelling. So, I made sure that no matter what, I tried to be as apolitical as possible in these posts, because people already get enough of that. My grandpa Ozzy had a great quote, too. He said, if you get it, there are two things that you never want to get into if you're an entertainer. And this is the guy from, out of number one in 1935. And this was true back then. I still think it's kind of true now, where he said, you don't want to actually get in people's business about their politics or their religion. Those are the two things, because no matter what, you can have your own personal opinion, which is fine. But if you go out there and think that you can talk about it, right out of the box, you're discounting half of the people.
Right.
And that's not what Nelsons do. Our job has always been to be in the connection business, to bring people together.
Right.
And that was the one thing that always made Matthew and me very different in the very beginning. We were two men that were on a mission. We didn't just want to be in all the teen magazines and sell a lot of records. We actually really did want to make a difference. That's why we titled our record After the Rain. That's why, to this day, that song, Not Love and Affection, which actually went number one, After the Rain technically went number 3. But, I've got stacks of letters from people throughout the years that say that there was one line in that song that they really needed to hear in order to change their lives, which was, don't be afraid to lose what was never meant to be. And that's basically, and Matthew and I kind of built our entire lives and our careers on taking initiative, on not being anyone's victim, not allowing ourselves to go there, and always stay positive and hopeful in a world that can get dark from time to time. And what I realized about a week ago or so, I had fallen into this funk that was just really not me. It felt very foreign to me.
Mm-hmm.
I had a lot of anxiety, and anxiety comes from feeling a futility. You can't change your situation, and you're in peril, and so that fight or flight mechanism goes off. And I walked around for 2 days like that, and I caught myself, and I realized that I had bought into the things that I was seeing on TV and hearing on the radio that made me feel like a victim. And it's very disempowering. And it's also kind of a lie because, if you get to the point in your life where you kind of roll over and show your soft white underbelly, you acquiesce to other people's agenda for you. On the one hand, it takes the responsibility away from you, the work away from you, where you have to think for yourself, or you have to drag yourself out of bed and have a good attitude, despite feeling a little blue. But it also makes you completely powerless. It renders you powerless for changing your situation and changing your fate. And that is what made me depressed. I didn't really realize that. I mean, I tried on feeling like a victim for size, and I found I really didn't enjoy it. And I thought, wow, if I'm feeling this way, and I'm sure throughout this whole COVID thing, there have been a bunch of people locked at home that have felt this way or still currently do. And I just kind of thought, well, the one thing that worked for me, I just really kind of wanted to be honest about it and share and say that, no one's perfect. All of this stuff has been really hard on millions of people, in a variety of different ways. I mean, there's been a lot of depression. There's been a lot of relationships that have ended because of the close quarters living that, you don't have when you're two people in a relationship that are two ships passing in the night because you're all working hard and doing your thing normally. These are unprecedented times we're in. So I just realized that it starts from within. You see a lot of bad behavior out there, a lot of people being really mean to other people that you didn't see a year ago. And it can be, just about stupid things, fighting over a parking space, whether or not you're wearing a mask, who you voted for, all of this stuff, and they're acting so badly. And I realized the reason why I think people are doing that is because they do feel victimized. They do feel helpless. They do feel, in a very real practical sense, faceless and voiceless. And that's a horrible thing to feel, and when you feel that way, you tend to be snappy at the people that are closest to you, let alone the people that you see in a grocery store. And it's got to start someplace. So, here I am, I'm just some guy with long blonde hair. Again, my opinion is no more valid than anyone else's, but all I found was, maybe we wouldn't see such bad behavior, or we wouldn't be, kind of exhibiting so much bad behavior of our own if we felt better about ourselves. And it's not a Pollyanna attitude. It's just really kind of what I thought. And I got to be honest with you, when I made that distinction, and I just took the emotional stand that I am not a victim, I am not helpless. There are plenty of things that I can do to learn more today, feel better about myself, improve the quality of someone else's life, all of a sudden I started to feel immediately better. And I just wanted to share that with people. So that was basically the last post that I made. I'm going to be filming a bunch more today.
Good.
And then, I spread them out daily throughout the entire month. But that actually was really kind of a turning point for me where, I'm just not going to live in fear anymore. I'm going to love my neighbors and hug my kids tighter and be kind to my wife and check in on my friends and do all that kind of stuff and not crawl into basically a prison cell of my own making.
Well,
I talked for a long time just then, didn't I? Sorry about that.
No, it's good because you're being real. And, we like seeing that. I think that's super important for, fans, non-fans, whoever. It's just important for someone to, listen to somebody like you who's got decades, generations of history and the TV, radio, film business. To hear somebody just be real, it's good. It's just good.
Well, thank you. Well, look, the hardest thing for us in all of this has been being forcefully disconnected from our fans and what we love to do more than anything, which is play shows.
Mm-hmm.
We hear about. There are millions of people literally in the music industry. I'm not talking to people who are on stage that you pay money for tickets to go see. I'm talking like everybody, like the people who print the tickets, who sell the tickets, the
Absolutely.
people who hand you your soda at the venue, the people who help you park your car. All of those people have been out of work for a year.
Right.
And it's devastating. I mean, it's really, really hard. But, Matthew and I chose a life of connecting with people, about making that connection through our music. Man, emotionally speaking, that has been the most difficult thing for us to deal with by far all year, is kind of feeling like all of those millions of other people do, where, you're trucking along and you love what you do and you're really good at doing it, and you get a lot, back from actually, getting that done. I'm talking not even financially. I'm talking, emotionally back from your friends and your fans that you meet along the way. And all of a sudden, you are forbidden to do that. Can't do it. You can't do it. You cannot go out there and make connections with people. You can't make them feel better. You can't share the gifts that God gave you with people. You basically just gotta have to sit it out and wait until you get the green light. Man, that's been really, really hard. We're in unprecedented times now. Now, the upside of that is you do one of two things, as we were talking about earlier. You can actually take this time and feel sorry for yourself, and that leads to nowhere.
Right.
That's not a good thing.
Mm-hmm.
Or, you can pivot. And, human beings are really good at the pivot. We really are. We don't like to think about it because, we tend to be creatures of comfort, and we surround ourselves with that. But, you don't grow and you don't learn when you're comfortable. It's like going to the gym. If you're not getting sore going to the gym, you're not working out hard enough. It's kind of one of those things. So it's the same way in life. And the one thing that this time has allowed me to do is, no, I can't do shows right now, but I can actually put together a brand new musical trip that I've been wanting to do for the last 10 years and write all the songs for it and record all the songs for it and put the band together for it and have it ready for 2021 when we actually do have the green light.
Yep.
So, creatively speaking, because I chose to make it that way, it's been creatively incredibly positive because, I didn't realize that we've been going out there doing our shows and playing the hits that people want to hear. But, wise man once said, if you're not careful, no matter what you do for a living, your groove can very easily become a rut if you're not careful. And you can put your head up and 30 years have gone by like we talked about, and you go, man, what happened all this time? This year has been this year where it's like, well, I don't feel like as an artist I'm done saying what I want to say. I mean, there's no dishonor in going out there and playing the fair circuit, off of your hits for the rest of your life, and plenty of my contemporaries do that.
Right.
And that's okay. But those are people who really feel like, well, why bother putting out anything new because, times are different now, and we're not going to get the radio support or a support from a record company or something, or who's going to hear it. That's not what it's about. I grew up with second era Ricky Nelson, who became Rick Nelson and invented the country rock genre with his band, the Stone Canyon Band, when people considered him completely over. That's what I grew up with.
Crazy.
So I was inspired by that.
Yeah.
And that's what Matt and I have done this year. We put together Firstborn Sons, which is our country rock project that we are so stoked about. And, I mean, it's really hard to describe the music. You say, oh, the music's great and all that stuff. It's kind of like describing a meal that you just had that knocked you out. It's something that you have to experience first person yourself. But I promise you, this is the best music we've ever made. And there's no way in the world we could have done it if we didn't have the time to do it.
And it's true. You have to be adaptable no matter, I think, whether we're in this world event that we're in now or we're in another type of event, you always have to change. You always have to learn to, adapt to your current situation. And when you don't...
Sure, you do. And they say every person just in a non-COVID world has 6 different careers in their lifetime, okay? We just never plan on some things being forced upon us. But I want to note that I can't tell you how many examples I can cite for you of people that started out doing one thing, and they got into that groove, and they thought that was their calling, their one thing, and then they were forced to pivot. And it turned out that they did that other thing that pivoted to do so much better and had no idea. One example I've got, just a small idea. I've got a friend that I grew up with. His name is Greg. We went to high school together. Awesome guy. His first job out of high school was going on the Nelson After the Rain tour. He was just a high school friend who was trying to find his way. His other friends were going off to college on the parental plan. His folks had no money. He needed a gig. We gave him a gig. He comes out on the road. We put him in every single position that you could have on the crew. Okay, one day he would rig lights. Another day he'd run the soundboard. So on and so forth every single day, just so he could kind of feel like what he wanted to do. He fell into a niche where he wound up working his way up, doing lighting and sound, and he became the guy in the country that did those big, giant LED Diamond Vision screens at the biggest concerts. Like he went out with U2, he went out with Bon Jovi.
Wow.
He went out with the biggest artists in the world. Okay, and then COVID happened.
Yeah.
Now he cannot. I mean, this has been for the entire year. He got to the point about 2 months ago where he said, "Look, I love doing this. I'm the man who does this, right? But I can't do it anymore, and I don't think I want to do it anymore because." The restrictions were so harsh on people who worked on crews, not necessarily on the bands, but on the crews that were working. If one person tested positive for this flu, they were the whole crew was quarantined for 2 weeks without warning.
Wow!
So there was no security in what they were doing, right? And so right now he's always been a guy who loves his Harley Davidson, and with his managerial skills from running his company and stuff. He now runs the parts counter at the Nashville Harley Davidson dealership.
Come on.
He is so happy. He loves it.
That is awesome. That is awesome.
Yeah. And he didn't realize, I mean, now he gets to go home to his wife every night, to his home every night, and he gets to be around like-minded people who just love to ride, and he's good at it because he knows a lot about it. And this is, I have a feeling this is going to be what he's going to do happily for the rest of his life.
Yeah. I think I'm sorry. I just think that we're going to see a lot of changes once we come out on the other side, which we will. And I try to tell everyone we're going to come out on the other side eventually.
We are already, guys. We are. Let's just face it. This is what's awesome.
Totally.
I'm going to give you some Gunnar good news right here and right now. Okay? You've got to look at the data, the raw data, the real numbers. Okay? Not what you hear in the media. But, we're on radio, so I'm not going to be banned here. But do it yourself. Do the research yourself. It's so easy. Go to the CDC website. Go to the WHO website yourself and look at the data. And here's what I'm going to tell you. They keep on talking about numbers for COVID, for example. Numbers of cases, numbers of cases, numbers of cases. The numbers of cases do not matter, okay, if the actual mortality rate stays flat. As a matter of fact, it's good news that we're having more and more cases, and that mortality figure keeps on staying flat, which it has. What that means is either this is less lethal than we thought, okay, because, again, the mortality rates are still the same, okay, or it's basically what we've got is something that, okay, it spreads a lot, and it's a drag to get. I've had it. I've had it. Fortunately for me, I'm healthy. I have no other factors in there and stuff, and I'm not discounting anybody else that's been profoundly affected by it. It always sucks when someone dies of the flu. It's tragic. It really honestly is.
Yes.
And I love people, so I hate that part about it. However, when you look at the data clearly shows that we've got a handle on this. We're coming out of this. We're on the other side of this. I always told my kids that it's a very politically charged year.
Mm-hmm.
And what you're going to find is right after the election, I wouldn't be surprised if a bunch of good news about therapeutics, vaccines, and all that stuff starts getting presented to the public. And sure enough,
surprise.
It was 2 days after the election, and Pfizer says, "Guess what? We've got a vaccine that's 90% effective." Shocker! No kidding. Do you really? And we've got another one from another company.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's Moderna, and they say they're going to be able to put that out in January. So if you're a vaccine person, if that's really you think your answer for that, and it's something that you want to do, that will be available to you. So we are coming out of this. We do have hope. Okay, we really do, and it's important that people know that.
Absolutely.
And it's important that they don't lose, in my opinion, their sense of balance for a happy life in the meantime. Find the joy in the little things. Do that pivot, not just with your business, but emotionally too, and focus on things that are really important. My God, I got to get so much closer to my family during all of this.
I mean, how good is that?
And you chose to do that.
Yeah.
And you don't realize, as you're trucking along in life and life's going along and you're making money or you're going to school and you're doing that thing and you're spending your time on your cell phone, how little quality time you actually do spend with the people that you love. And I mean, the people that you love should be the reason why you go to work in the first place, is to provide for them and the life that lets you enjoy your family and your friends and your loved ones. Man, so pivot. Absolutely. We are really, really good at that. And we're all in this together in these unprecedented times. These is all new stuff. So anybody that tells you any different is trying to sell you something. But, it's one day at a time for real, in my opinion. It is pulling yourself up by your bootstraps, not being anybody's victim, and taking your emotional life by the horns and actually, kind of doing something positive with every single day, even if it's little things. Every little victory kind of adds, it stacks up to making you feel good. And then, eventually, guys, we're going to get through all of this. We really will. This is okay. It's not the end of days.
We have our own special Good News from Gunnar segment here on Kiki.fm. Now, question though, you are friends with a lot of artists. You're living in Nashville, which is really like kind of the new LA, right? I mean, everybody's in Nashville.
Yeah, for better or worse, it kind of is. I don't blame them. It's a wonderful place.
Yeah.
I understand.
Now, quick question here. So with all of the artists that something that's been burning in my brain, I really think that things, even when we come out of it, they're going to be different. And I kind of feel as if some artists won't return because maybe they have found themselves another thing that they're really good at. What do you think about that? Do you see that happening with any artists that without naming names?
Well, no, it really depends, because I don't know what anybody else's agenda is. And I would assume that that's going to be that way, not just in music, but we'll get back to that, but in life in general for a lot of people. I think it really depends ultimately on how important it is to each artist to do what I was saying, to actually go out there and do shows for people. If their real motivation is just to make a living, as I mentioned, you can make a far better living doing far less work. Sell some houses, do some affiliate marketing online. There's a lot of things you can do to make money if that's your only thing. So I think any of those artists that had, money as their prime motivation and not their art or not connecting with fans, yeah, I'm sure there are a lot of those people that are going to drop out. But, okay, well, via con Dios if that's the case.
Yeah.
And I think that's also going to be a good thing, because what you're going to be left with are the people that really freaking love music and bringing it to you.
Yeah, the cream that floated to the top.
Yeah, I mean, there are plenty of people that are still motivated. Look, I personally, I know hundreds of entertainers. We talk all the time. I don't know a single one that isn't going, gosh, I can't wait to get out and tour again.
Yeah.
Because we all are. We can't wait.
Yeah.
And it doesn't matter what they do. It doesn't matter if they do like restricted seating and all of that kind of stuff.
Right.
Maybe, I know that a lot of people do virtual concerts, and we're guilty of that as well. We do a lot of that as well as we can. And
you just did one.
I kind of like that, to be honest with you, because, the one downside of us going out and physically touring and physically being there is you have to put this in mind. For every concert that we play, and a lot of the dates that we do, they're kind of fly dates. So we get on a plane here in Nashville, and we fly into a city, and we'll do a show, fly the next day, do another show, fly the next day, do another show, then come home. So let's say we do 3 gigs a week on the weekends. We're weekend warriors. What it doesn't tell you is that we have to be gone, traveling from show to show a lot.
Yeah.
And while we're traveling, we have to travel. We can't do shows while we're traveling. We can't do anything else while we have travel days. On show days, we can only be in one place at one time, correct?
Yep.
Now, the definition of any business is that your business can run for you as well or better than as if you were there on site at the time. So really, we're not business people. Most entertainers are not. We're actually sole proprietors. We go out and we're specialists. We do our thing, and we get remunerated for that. But we can only be in one place at one time. This virtual world that we now have, it's opened up some pretty interesting opportunities. Like, for example, we've been approached by some companies that do kind of like their Friday recap with their employees. That a lot of them are doing them through Skype or Zoom or teleconferencing,
Right.
and they'll want to have me and Matthew come online with them and do a half-hour set for them and do either a musical master class or a motivational speech or something like that. So, yeah, we do get to connect with those people, but I can do 5 of those a day.
That's cool.
Or if I'm just going out to play a concert, which is awesome, and the holy grail for me, I love doing that. I have to be in that one place and at that one time, and it takes 3 days out of my life to go and do every one show.
Right.
So I think what it's going to be is like kind of a blend of what we've learned during our pivot, during COVID, and what we've always loved doing. And I think that's a good thing.
I think it's a great thing. I do.
I mean, some things, I think some change is really, really actually positive. Again, if you don't allow yourself to feel like a victim, like, woe is me, I can't go out and do shows. Okay, well, let's pivot and let's see what we can do.
Right.
And do as much of that. And in a post-COVID world we can take that with us. And I think that applies to everybody out there that's listening.
How did the virtual show go last weekend? We had some listeners that attended because, I was talking about it. And how did it go? Was it fun?
Oh, we had a great time. The time flies, first off. And the one that you're mentioning was we did the first virtual show about 2 months ago, and that was really cool. We kind of did a blended set, and then we kind of put a message out to the fans. Hey, send in your requests. If you can't join us live, then send in your requests of songs, like even obscure songs of ours that you'd want to hear. And the one that we did last week was Nelson kind of rock band exclusive thing. So we got a lot of requests for some really deep cuts from some power fans from our music back in the day, and that was fun. The next one that we've got coming up is on the 20th of December. And this is a response to us not being able to go out and do our typical Christmas with the Nelsons tour, which has actually turned into a big thing. It's like the Trans-Siberian Orchestra goes out and does their thing every Christmas season. We've actually built a completely separate brand, and we've been doing it for the last 6 years, and it's been building and growing as a really, really successful thing. And basically, from the day after Thanksgiving to 3 days before Christmas, every day we've always had a show, a concert in a performing arts center someplace doing the Christmas show. And, we had a Christmas album go top 5 for 2 years in a row with some original Christmas music. And it's something legit, and it's really fun to do. But this year clearly has shut all that down. And so rather than be bummed, which, it is kind of a bummer, we decided to do it virtually. So we're going to do a version of our Christmas show on December 20th for everybody to enjoy. And they can, they get the show. We're also offering this really cool thing where we've never done a package offering for the digital ticket, as well as a special T-shirt.
Oh, nice.
That's just for the show and stuff. And, it's kind of a fun thing. The response has been really good. So I think what we're going to start doing is themed concerts, virtual concerts throughout the year that would be different than what you would see if you would come to see us in person.
Right.
And we would do like our standard Nelson show, Christmas with a Nelson show, or Firstborn Son show. Every virtual concert is going to be very, very different. We're going to take it seriously. It's not going to be phoned in from our living room. We're going to light it well. We're going to try to look good and stuff, at least Matthew will. And we're going to try to give the fans in real time a way to connect with us and give us some feedback.
Now,
it was a blast.
I'm glad you guys had a great time. I'm sure everybody was so excited about it. But I got to ask you about this Christmas. You did it with Carney and Wendy Wilson. You guys are amazing together. Do you think you'll do something again together soon?
Well, I never say never. Look, I love those girls. I mean, I really do. Carney is like one of my favorite people, and I mean, they're both just really wonderful. And I kind of always had this suspicion that the four of us singing together was really going to be a really magical blend, and kind of like the intention was to do it as like a modern Mamas and the Papas. That's what we kind of envisioned, sonically at least. And the song is called "This Christmas." And the second year that we did it with the girls. You'll be able to find the video online.
Yep.
And man, I think we just knocked it out of the park. And it's funny that you mentioned it. We're actually talking to the biggest record company in the world right now. We're doing a catalog deal for Nelson for the 21 titles that we've had in our career so far.
Wow.
To bring everything in-house. And one of the things that they talked about, apparently they they actually organically heard and saw that single and what we did with Carney and Wendy, and they're talking to us now about doing a record deal for a record of that. And I mean, I'm really excited at the thought of doing something like that. I love singing with those girls. I think they're wonderful. And, I mean, it's just tough. We're all family people right now, and they still go out and do their dates with Wilson Phillips. And, they've got kids. I mean, Wendy's got a ton of kids. And, Carney's got a couple too. And, it keeps them very, very busy. And so it really is going to come down to if they feel like they've got enough time in their lives to delegate to working with me and Matthew, because we work really, really hard.
Mm-hmm.
We do. We really take what we do we don't take ourselves seriously, but we take the music that we make really, really seriously. And the one thing doing the one single with them showed them is when I'm producing a song, it's got to be right, and we'll do whatever work it takes to do it. And it took them a lot of time that I don't think they're used to taking on their projects. So, but the funny thing you mentioned, I mean, I heard from Carney last week, and she's like, man, when can we start making some music? So next year, I'm not never saying never. You actually might be hearing some new stuff from us.
That would be awesome. You guys are magical together. I just have to say that. Just the four of you together, it's perfection, really.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. I think it sounds like a human harmonica.
Well, we want to play it. We want to hear it. Now, I got to ask you, though, going back to the amazingly talented family that you're from, who are some of the people we would know that used to come out of, the Nelson household when you were growing up? Who would go in and out?
Well, I mean, when I was a kid, I didn't know who any of these people were.
But I'm sure we're going, oh my gosh.
I didn't know the guy with the crazy hair was Bob Dylan.
Oh my gosh.
I didn't know the skinny guy who lived next door for a couple of years and came over for breakfast every morning before we went to school was George Harrison.
Are you serious?
I'm serious, yeah. I mean, he was just a really nice guy. He used to spend all day playing pool with my dad in his den and listening to old rockabilly records.
Wow.
To steal James Burton licks. I mean, he was a great guy. And, Mama Cass Elliott was my babysitter.
I remember Matthew telling me that a while ago.
Yeah,
that is just amazing.
Straight up. And there were always people coming over, not only for the parties, but just stopping by. But, when Matt and I grew up, we grew up in the Hollywood Hills during that whole Laurel Canyon music scene. So, when our dad was putting his Stone Canyon band together, he was playing at a little club down the hill called the Troubadour Club. And it was kind of the epicenter of that whole California sound. So the folks that were coming over on a regular basis were people like Linda Ronstadt, Jackson Brown, Joni Mitchell, James Taylor, Crosby, Stills, and Nash. One time Neil Young came over to the house. You've got all of those great bands from that scene, and everybody kind of hung out with each other and wrote music together and played their acoustic guitars and did that. It was a really bohemian time, and that was just my normal. That's what Matthew and I always had growing up. It was just kind of a thing, I mean, everybody, when I grew up, everybody had a hit song on the radio. Everybody had an acoustic guitar in their hand. Everybody was writing a song. Everybody was singing together. That's just kind of what I grew up with.
Oh my gosh! Like I can't. I'm foaming at the mouth right now.
Yeah, well, the best way for me to describe it, because one of the popular questions is, what was it like growing up in the household that you had, and did you feel any pressure to follow in your family footsteps? And to be honest with you, no, not at all. Because, like I mentioned, it was my normal, much the same as if I can imagine the Manning house, when Archie was playing ball, and then, of course, Eli and Peyton were growing up. It's just what they did. They were in a football family.
Yeah.
So that was just kind of their normal,
But now, sorry. Did you get pushed into music, though? Or I know that you and Matthew started writing songs when you were 6. And by the way, do you still have those? And was everyone encouraging you to say, you know what, just do it, go for it?
Well, yes and no. I mean, that's kind of an interesting question. We started playing music when we were 6 years old because we wanted to be like our father. We saw him at his shows and stuff when we were kids, and we always I think it's normal for a son to deify their father, and we wanted to be that way. We genuinely loved music, and we started out writing. And the proof of that is our first recording session was when we were 12 years old. It was on our 12th birthday. And our father surprised us with a recording session at a real recording studio that he produced. His guitar player played guitar. The cool ladies that came in to sing backup, I didn't know until years later, they were Bonnie and Ruth Pointer of the Pointer Sisters. And again, it's just kind of
Wow.
like, we had a totally normal childhood, obviously. And it was just something that we always wanted to do. But, our parents, yes, they supported us in the sense that they didn't look at us like we had six heads when I said I wanted a drum set.
Right.
I was able to get one from a pawn shop that was local. This piece of crap that our parents put out. At the time we lived in kind of like a little tiny farm, so they put I'm using air quotes here. The music room was the loft, the hayloft above the barn, with the horses and the cows downstairs and all that kind of stuff. So we put our instruments outside of the house in the barn where we wouldn't bother anybody making a racket. And what they didn't realize is that it created a monster because, our dad would come off the road periodically and stuff, and not only did we not quit when the other kids were blowing up mailboxes and getting into trouble, Matt and I couldn't wait to get home from school and go out to the hayloft and woodshed along to records. And that's what we did. And, it was just one of those things that we always wanted to do. And, unlike our father, I mean, he had a very particular style and sound. So did me and Matthew, and so did our grandparents. They had their big band and stuff. So I think each generation of Nelson has always done what's appropriate for their generation and the kind of music that they love. And Matt and I grew up with an equal dose of California country, like I mentioned, that whole Laurel Canyon sound, and arena rock. And when you listen to that first Nelson record, you can hear it. I mean, the vocals are country straight up. It's Linda Ronstadt records. And the attitude of the music is Queen, Boston, Bad Company, Foreigner, all those other things that we grew up with.
Mm-hmm.
And, I say to people that Nelson, I'm so proud of it. Nelson was the band that I always wanted before I really knew what I wanted in a band, if that makes any sense to you.
I was just going to say, how does that work? How do you know?
Well, I mean, when you actually start, you get your record deal at 19 and you have your first number one on your 22nd birthday, I mean, it's a juggernaut, and it's an amazing thing. And obviously that whole confidence rock thing of Living on a Prayer was a big deal at that time. And then the world kind of descended into grunge for 8 full years.
Yep.
And, it was a huge paradigm shift. And during that time, Matthew and I basically were going out, not only doing, some of our shows, but we started a new brand called Ricky Nelson Remember, just to take a break, because we never played any of our dad's music. We always tell people, we remind them, we sold millions of records to kids who had no idea who Ricky Nelson was.
Right.
So it wasn't really a thing that we wanted to do, but we had a lot of people throughout the years, wanting to hear our dad's music. They missed him, so we thought, okay, well, we'll just do a one-off show, and it was very successful. But instantly, I found myself having to go back to the drawing board as a guitar player and learn all those seminal James Burton licks on a Telecaster, and I realized in no short order why so many of the luminaries that I grew up idolizing, like Jimmy Page and Brian May and Tony Iommi, cite those early Ricky Nelson records as their number one influence that made them want to pick up the guitar in the first place, because the playing was amazing.
Yeah.
And in no short order, I became a much better guitar player, a much more well-rounded writer, and realized that, shoot, man, we had a really great run with that first Nelson record before grunge. But I've been a tele player and a country picker for 20 times longer than I ever played the arena rock. I'm not saying that there's not going to be some element of that in what we do. I mean, the new stuff that we're doing is best described as Joe Walsh era Eagles mixed with Lynyrd Skynyrd.
Dang.
That's kind of what we're doing now, and I'm just really proud of it, and I think people are going to really dig it.
So I'm thinking arena country, really.
Arena country, for lack of a better term. Yep.
Well, because
here's what we figured. Before the whole COVID thing, look, man, it's all about our industry was demonetized a long time ago as far as like royalties, because we don't sell records anymore with streaming and all that stuff. Basically, your music has become a commercial to get people to your shows.
Yeah.
So what if you put a trip together that's completely designed around a freaking great show that people, when they hear you're coming to town, they go, I can't miss that. That's going to be a good time. I don't want to miss that show. We wanted to position ourselves to be that band where people think that. And we always did that with Nelson back in the day, but this is far more applicable to who we are musically and personally right now. And, man, I don't know anybody that doesn't own an Eagles record in their collection, whether or not they're country fans.
Yeah, it's so true.
It's
so true.
very natural to us.
We need a good arena song right now. We need that.
Well, we got them on deck for you. They're already recorded and mixed, and they're gonna knock you out of your boots.
Well, I appreciate it, and so does everyone else. Now, your number one song, "Love and Affection," what was the whole driving force behind writing that song? You guys wrote it with producer Mark Tanner. What was the inspiration behind "Love and Affection"?
Well, just writing great songs was the original inspiration for doing that entire record. We wanted to write a whole album full of singles. We didn't want any album cuts. We kind of figured that, all those years working our way up in LA clubs, paying our dues, that most of those bands that were playing clubs were at the club level because if they were lucky, they had one song in their entire set that all the girls would suffer through the other songs to wait for. And we thought, well, we don't want to be that band. What if we just go back to the drawing board and learn how to write great songs? And "Love and Affection" was really one of those things where, it started out from our personal experience in high school. To be honest with you, Matthew and I were never the popular kids. We were always the geeks and the dorks.
What?
We just always were.
No.
Probably so. We've always been nerds, and we were always the guys with blue hair working on our music in the school quad, and all the hot chicks were going out with these really good-looking dirtbags who had a lot of money and stuff and treated them like crap. And we were the guys that they would, come running to make them feel better about themselves after they got dumped. And of course, we'd make them feel better about themselves and, pick them up, dust them off, and they go right back to those dirtbag guys.
But you didn't have people, wanting to be your friends because of who you guys were?
No. Remember the time we were in? No one my age knew who our family was.
Yeah.
No one cared. No one cared. Plus, remember, we grew up in Los Angeles. So that really wasn't a big deal. It really wasn't all that special to come from a TV family.
Yeah,
or a musical
family.
It was pretty common.
Yeah.
But, also, too, when you're trying to make your way, look, junior high and high school is awkward for everybody.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, those days suck. I mean, they're really hard. And, it was no different for us, too. And so "Love and Affection," if you listen to the lyrics, it's really, truly being one of those guys who feels like he's on the outside looking in. If you listen to the words of that
Mm-hmm.
song, here she comes, there she goes. And, I've been on the outside looking in. They're really just based on our life experience. And it's kind of cool that song caught fire and went number one. It's even cooler that Rolling Stone magazine ranks that as the number 2 stalker song of the entire 80s and 90s.
Come on.
Only to be beaten by "Every Breath You Take" by the Police.
Wow. That's pretty awesome.
I know, right? I didn't know that I was a stalker, but I guess I am.
Well, I mean, all right, listen, just to make you feel better, I would have stalked you and your brother in high school because I knew who Ozzie and Harriet was. I used to watch the reruns and I knew who your dad was. So I would have been the one person to say, "Oh my God, I'm in school with Gunnar and Matthew."
I tell you something, the concept of anybody stalking me in high school is so foreign to me. I would have been so welcoming of you stalking me in high school. Trust me.
Well, because you say you guys were nerds, I was a bigger nerd. Yeah, I knew exactly. Yeah, So
but
anyway,
hope. I saw the movie Revenge of the Nerds, and they got their revenge, and it's kind of like never give up hope. You never do. I always tell my daughters, I say, the only thing that makes somebody look like a dork is not acknowledging that we're all dorks, and we're just trying to cover up for it. I say when someone is trying to be hip and popular and cool and all that stuff, the bottom line is none of us knows what we're doing. Yeah. We're all awkward. We're all trying to do the best we can. We make our mistakes, and deep down inside, we're all nerds.
Yeah.
And if you don't feel that way, then frankly, you really are a nerd.
I'm a wicked nerd. But anyway,
uh-huh.
Now you guys went on tour with Enough's Enough, Taiketo, Cinderella. What was the craziest tour you guys did when you went out for After the Rain?
Well, it would definitely be the Enough's Enough guys.
Come on.
Oh, no.
I'm not shocked at all, but okay.
No. Those guys were insane. They're crazy. Look, I love.
I know.
I love Chips Enough. He's one of my
great.
favorite guys. I don't like Donnie V.
Yeah.
And it's okay. He likes me about as much as I like him. But it really, honestly, sincerely, and this is from the bottom of my heart, not insinuating anything at all, but my mother was an alcoholic and a drug addict.
Mm-hmm.
So being around anybody that has any kind of challenges at all is very, very difficult for me on a just a physical, visceral level. I have a reaction to somebody that's impaired. That's not good. It doesn't make me feel safe.
Yeah.
It's a really icky thing. And I'd heard some stories and stuff that, that there were some challenges with that camp, and I'm, we were the headliner at the time, and we come from a circus family, so there was never anything competitive with anybody that we took on tour with us. We, our whole thing was kind of like, as a circus family, it's all about the show for the fans,
right,
from beginning, middle to end. First band, second band, third band. It's all about the show. Grab a tent peg, do your part. We're in this together. That was always our attitude.
Mm-hmm.
And I have to say that those guys were amazing creatively on stage. And they had just done a strength record, and they were really in their golden era. And, I love the Beatles anyways, but their take on music at that particular time, like, Fly High Michelle and New Thing, we brought them on tour not because we thought they were going to add any people in the seats. We brought them on tour because we were genuinely fans of their music. And we did the same thing with Taiketo, same thing. I just thought Danny was, an amazing singer, is an amazing singer, and Brooks was incredible on guitar, and I'm a fan. So, it's just kind of like one of those opportunities, much like doing the Love and Affection video and having, one of the chicks from Weird Science, do a cameo in that. I had her in the video because I was a fan.
Yeah.
And we're back to nerddom again, aren't we? I'm advertising being a nerd, aren't I? But
it's all good.
Yeah, but honestly, those guys off stage were freaking crazy, man. I mean, they
How
really
crazy?
were in both a good and a bad way, because, it really depends, because every individual is different. But, I've always found, I've got the blessing of coming from a family that's been doing this for over 100 years. So, our whole thing is this is your job. This is what you do. You can have fun doing your job, but the job comes first. Really, truly, my family ethic is the show must go on no matter what, and it's about the show. And if you do anything lifestyle-wise that can then potentially compromise the quality of your show for your fans, the integrity for your show, then you're in my family, you're letting down your namesake. That's just something you don't do. And there's some people that are like, hey, man, let's party, and this is all, who cares? And this is all about, fun and experience. And the most dangerous of all is buying into the whole rock and roll lifestyle fantasy thing, which is, hey, if I'm going to be a blues singer, then I'm going to live like a blues man. But those people all, they died early, and they died broke, and they died diseased, and they died drunk. You don't want to do that.
Absolutely
If you're a
not.
Nelson, you don't do that. It's just not what we do. But I'm not saying that there aren't other people in my industry that tragically we don't have around anymore because they bought into that.
Yeah.
And, I suppose coming from the family that we came from and having the example of our father around us when we were growing up, because it was our normal, much like, say, the Manning family or John Force's family with his incredibly talented daughters who drive dragsters and stuff and grew up, in the pits, wrenching engines. It's just what we did. So, when you catch a lick doing something like that, we don't tend to go crazy and buy into that thing of like, oh man, we need private jets and, cocaine on people's heads and stuff like that. We just never bought into that.
And you know what? I have to ask you though, it had to be so you were never maybe tempted at one point or another to fall into that because you were around it all the time, right?
No, because honestly, I'm being honest with you. The only thing better than a good example in your life, if you've got half a brain, is having a great bad example. You have a great bad example around you, it puts you into this place where you go, you know what? I am never going to be like you.
Good for you.
I see what it does to you. I see what it's done to your relationships. You've lost everything. You've lost all your money. You've lost your marriage. You've lost everything. And drugs and alcohol did that to my family. It just straight up did. We were on top of the world at one point in the 50s. And, when my dad died, he left us with a couple $1 million of his debt. And, we had to work for 20 years to pay back all of his debts. Matthew and I are very proud of doing that. We did that on our own.
Absolutely.
People would think, oh, you come from a famous family and you had trust funds and, music's always been a hobby. No, it wasn't. We got a record deal. We had $76 in the bank to our name, period. That was it. And, all of our friends were at college and stuff, allowing themselves some time to figure out what they wanted to do. It was always sink or swim for me in that. And so because drugs and alcohol really, really wreaked havoc on our family, that's just not who we are. We don't do that. We would look at that as kind of a weakness going down that road. And I suppose that comes from the other side of our family that, is a sports family. It's the high achieving sports family. Like our Uncle Mark, he might be Gibbs on NCIS right now, but he was also the starting quarterback for UCLA on their championship team. And even more so, his father, Tom Harmon, won the Heisman Trophy at Michigan. It was one of the greatest college players of all time. And if you grow up in an environment where you got Nelson's on one side of your family, Harmon's on the other, the conversations at Christmas time are pretty intense, and you're kind of held to a pretty high standard.
Yeah.
I will tell you, though, Matthew and I always had one vice, and it wasn't drugs and alcohol, and there were 22,000 of them a night at our shows.
So is that what you meant when you had said at one point that you were a bad boy for a long time? Is that what you were referring to?
Uh-huh. Well, I mean, it depends on what your gauge of being a bad boy is, but Gene Simmons used to call me for advice. So yeah, I was bad. I mean, I really was, but I always had a lot of fun, and everybody that I had fun with had a lot of fun, and those were just the times we were in.
Yeah,
you have to cast your mind back, okay, just for a second, for perspective. This was a time before cell phones.
Yeah.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Now, why is that important?
Because there were no pictures. There were no videos.
You always had culpable undeniability. It wasn't me. That was my twin. Absolutely. Okay, so you could always do that. It was also before the internet. Dig that. Can you imagine a world for a lot of those people who are listening without the internet and without cell phones?
Can you? I do think about that too. I'm like, can you imagine if the internet was around in the 80s?
Oh my gosh. No. Well, the 80s wouldn't have happened.
Motley Crue.
The 80s couldn't have happened with the internet around.
Yeah,
couldn't have happened.
True. It's true.
And the cell phones happened at the very end of the 80s when, like, making a call. I remember when making a phone call was $10 a minute.
Right.
Okay, no, for real. I mean,
no, I remember. Yeah.
Right. So I mean, when I tell my kids, I say, you think it would be terrible to not have instant access to information at any time. Okay, to have to go down to a library and pull a book or look on microfilm or microfiche for your research, okay? And, okay, that's a drag. But imagine this. Imagine you get to leave your house every day, and the height of technology to you is an answering machine that you leave a comical outgoing message on. You go out and you get to live your day without an invisible leash being tugged at the entire day every time your cell phone rings.
Mm-hmm.
Imagine that. And then you come home, and you screen your calls, and you only return the ones that you need to or want to. So you were really living life on your own terms at that time. It was a real blessing. No, you didn't have all the conveniences in the world, but you know what? You got to a quality of life that you don't get now, in my opinion.
You're absolutely right.
As far as like your experiences of, quote, being a bad boy or a bad girl, damn it, all of us had a lot of fun back then. A lot of fun, because we were able to get away with it.
Yeah.
I mean, what teenage girl has not said, "Oh, Mom, I'm going to be spending the night at Stacy's house," and you weren't at Stacy's house, and Stacy told her mom that she was going to be spending the night at your house, and she wasn't at your house.
No, they're at Matt and Gunnar's house.
Hey, amen to that. But this was also a time when, if you wanted to have a date with a girl, you actually had to brave through meeting her father or big brother at the door. You had to go and knock on the door or call the house.
Yeah, but you know what? I envision you having those rules.
Oh, well, you know what? I got to be honest, man. I can't take credit for my girls. They just came out of the womb awesome. My wife was awesome with them. And, I was blessed to have them come into my life when my eldest, who's now 20, was only 11 years old.
It's crazy.
And, my youngest was 3. So,
wow.
But, I think the foundation was well set.
Yeah.
And it was always one of character and being polite. And, I mean, they're the kind of girls, the kind of kids that will walk up to you and hold out their hand to shake your hand, look you in the eye, and announce themselves.
I love that.
And when they ask you how you're doing, they really actually care how you're doing. And,
yeah.
I mean, I think that's something God given. That's something I can't take credit for, and I feel really blessed. And they got pretty good heads on their shoulders, but I'm not going to lie, man. I've heard they've had boyfriends coming over that I haven't cleaned my gun on the front porch a couple times, when I knew they were arriving. So,
see what I mean?
But fortunately, they're really good people, And, I think as a parent, which is, relatively new to me, the only thing that you want as a parent is for your kids to be obviously happy and healthy, but to grow up to be good little citizens. You want them to be aware of other people and to have empathy and sympathy and proactivity and positivity and all those things.
Right.
And, I think that I might have had a little to do with that because, their mother, my wife, had me on a poster on her wall when she was growing up as a teenager.
Isn't that crazy?
And what really attracted her, other than the aesthetics and the music, was the fact that we were always really positive and uplifting in all the press and the interviews that we gave and stuff for a reason. Because, we've always really believed that. And I think she raised her daughters that way, and now my daughters. She raised them that way. And, who knows? Maybe the musical trip that we were on, kind of went full circle and came back around and prepared my daughters for the people that they are today. And I think that's actually pretty cool. At least I'd like to tell myself that. But yeah, they're pretty awesome.
No, you're definitely part of that equation with Lila as well. Of course you are. I mean, you've been in their lives for such a long time. But I got to ask you about Celebrity Wife Swap. I have to because...
Sure, yeah, go ahead. Sure.
I remember I watched it when it first came out. I'm like, oh my gosh, Gunnar Nelson and Vince Neil. That's going to be crazy. But, it really wasn't as crazy as I thought it was going to be. How was that experience for you and Lila?
Well, what was crazy about it is that we were freshly married when we did this.
Yeah, it was 6 months, right?
6 months.
Yeah.
Yeah, something like a month or two. And we got the phone call to do the show. And the show was the highest rated show on ABC at the time. So
oh, my gosh.
The Celebrity Wife Swap thing was. And, we thought, okay, well, this is pretty interesting. And we actually fell a little short when we bought our first house together. So the money would, help shore up the shortfall and all that. But, obviously growing up in Hollywood like I have and being on TV as much as I have, I was clearly concerned because, it's a reality show. I mean, you're talking about a guy who was on Celebrity Fit Club. So I know how they can twist things around and, they want to make it interesting even if they have to manufacture that. Did you know that on reality shows there's a person on the crew that they call the conflict producer?
Nuh-uh.
No, dig this. This is for real. There's somebody that we never saw, but there was somebody in the back room on one of those little cricket, earbud things that that the host that's talking to you in front of the camera is getting a feed from somebody watching you on a monitor in a back room who's called the conflict producer. And their job is to put questions in the host's ear that are controversial.
I did not
before
know
they even
that.
hire you to do a reality show, they've got all of these things sketched out, like these side stories that they want to investigate. Maybe if there's smoke in this area, we can actually, blow some air on it and turn it into a fire. And that's what they do, and that's what they did. And I was concerned about that and prepared for it. So I sat Lila down and the girls before we even did it, and we actually talked about it as a family and said, this is an offer that just came in. There are blessings and curses of it. You guys didn't sign up for this. The whole point of getting married and having, kids and family is, this is something that's private to me. It's my thing, but
right.
It's potentially a good opportunity. The downside is, you're going to be public and you might have to deal with somebody called the conflict producer. They might try to get you to say things or do things that would make you look not like yourself or bad because it gives it an edge or whatever their play is on that. So I'm going to say one thing to you. If you decide to do this, if we all as a family say, okay, we're going to go forward with this, keep this in mind. If you don't say it, and if you don't do it, they can't show it. Keep that in mind. Okay, now saying that to an 8-year-old kid is pretty interesting, right?
What did he say?
You had that conversation first, and that's a conversation from, again, a person who comes from a TV family. And I also said one other thing that was very important. The people that you meet on the crew, all of the producers, they're going to be friendly to you. They're going to try to act like, like they're your best buddies. They're going to try to get you with your guard down, and they're going to film every minute of it. Always keep this in mind. They are not your friends. And that really did come in handy when we actually filmed that because a lot of that, what they were trying to do was trying to drum up conflict between my daughters and Vince's girlfriend, Rain. And we had just met Rain for the first time, but my daughters they're really sweet people, and they really liked Rain.
Yeah.
And the producer was constantly trying to say, feed things to our kids, going, when I wasn't around, of course, going, yeah, say that, bothers you that she showed up in her heels and, acted all posh and stuff, and she stuck up. And when my middle daughter, Ariana, came to me, she was crying, and she said, well, they want me to say all these things. Trust me, I had a powwow with all the producers the next morning, and I said, you are never asking them any questions without me in the room.
Yeah.
And if I catch any of you guys trying to Shanghai my kids like that again, show ends. We're not doing it.
Wow,
Okay?
like all this stuff that goes on, we have no idea.
Yeah, but that's why the end result of doing Celebrity Wife Swap was actually pretty cool, and it did show a really good contrast because
it did.
Vince and Rain, Vince is one of my best friends. He's a lot smarter than anybody knows. I'm telling you, he's a really good guy. He's very, very bright.
Yeah.
Okay. But as we know, remember I was talking about buying into the rock and roll myth.
Yes.
And living an image, right?
Yep.
It can be very dangerous, and it can be very, very toxic to someone's health if you're not very careful. And I think we all have our challenges and stuff. And with Vince, the only time he gets himself into trouble, in my opinion, this is from a friend from a distance, is if he buys too much into the rock and roll myth. And he goes through peaks and valleys of that, as we all do with our challenges.
Yeah.
And that's very real. So that fast life of living in Las Vegas and going to the casino every night and the flash cars and all that stuff, that is genuinely who Vince is.
Yeah.
He really is that, and he's got to see that. But you also got to see that the Nelsons are very different because we've been doing this as long as we have, and we're really not impressed by the glitz and the glamour and the flash because I grew up with Beatles. What can I say? So our whole thing is about the opposite, where we can have a very real, loving, kind, supportive family 5 days a week, and I can go out and I can play on stages that are the same size that Vince plays, and then come back and still have a normal life.
Right.
That's what is important to me, and that was what I think was a really important contrast to show that for me, man, it's all about family. That's why I work. And I think the difference is, some of us they work to live, and some of us live to work. Mm-hmm. And I think that was the biggest contrast that was shown on that show.
I had to watch it again, of course, and I thought they did a good job with it. Because you go back and I remember when it first came on, I'm like, oh my gosh, this is going to be crazy, and then it wasn't. When I rewatched it again just recently, I said they did a pretty good job showing it wasn't too, over here or over here. I thought it was well done.
A great postscript to that whole thing. As I mentioned, Vince is one of my close friends. Mm-hmm. After filming that show, I had a conversation. There was a scene in Celebrity Wife Swap where I was driving in my 67 GTO convertible.
Gorgeous.
Beautiful Nashville day.
Yeah.
And we were driving to a local small town that time forgot called Leapers Fork, Tennessee. It's about a half hour away from my house. And it was just me and Rain in the car driving to a little Cars and Coffee event that they have there every weekend. And it was very organic. There was apparently the film car was chasing us and stuff. But we were driving through the Tennessee countryside on our way to that Cars and Coffee event in this beautiful classic car on a beautiful day, driving past all the horse farms with the southern fences there and all that. And we totally forgot that we had cameras mounted in the car and that the wireless mics were on and we were being recorded. We completely forgot. And Rain started really kind of like she lost sense that we were working on a show. We were just driving someplace for a half hour. She started talking about who she was when she grew up and the kind of person she was. That she was just a country girl. She was a 4-H girl. She grew up raising horses and living on a farm, and she was reminded by everything that she saw of that life that she really missed, that she really loved as a kid. And this is a person, mind you, that was dressed to the nines.
Yeah. She seems like a sweetheart.
Stripper heels and the same kind of pants that Olivia Newton-John wore in Grease. At the end, and and there was this disconnect that. It was very kind of like melancholy. We had this moment, this pause, and I said, well, what are you doing living in Vegas then? What are you doing if you're if you're a horse girl, if you grew up doing rodeo and raising cows and stuff, what are you doing in Las Vegas? Well, after the show, 2 months later, they sold everything in Las Vegas. They live 10 minutes away from me.
Stop.
Here in Nashville, in Franklin, Tennessee.
For real?
For real.
That is amazing. Look at that.
So I mean, really, honestly, I really owe a lot to doing that show.
Wow.
But I deep down inside, I think in a very real sense, if only in an emotional sense, but maybe in a physical sense, I think Vince owes his life to doing that show because he was living so fast and so hard there in Vegas doing that. It was on such a high-paced run.
Yeah.
That I think honestly it's been really good for him on a lot of different levels living here, and he loves it here. He really does, like a lot of people do. It's like LA was 30 years ago before it started believing its own press releases. It's a very creative, neighborly, supportive kind of place.
So many people are there.
It's really kind of a safe place that Vince can come back from going out and doing a bunch of Motley shows and hanging out with his friends and feeling like a human being and not just a show pony. You know what I mean?
That's what a great story that is. I had no idea. So you changed Vince Neil's life.
Well, they always say that the wife is the neck. The woman is the neck if the man's the head of the family, as they say in Big Fat Greek Wedding. And maybe I didn't, but maybe indirectly, because it was really an important conversation with Rain.
Yeah.
And that's, I know who had a conversation with Vince after it. And, he definitely did agree to it because, sometimes you just have to kind of like catch yourself and go, you don't have to do this,
Yeah.
You don't have to do this. And you reevaluate the choices that you've made. I've got so many friends that live in L.A., not because they love L.A., but because it's something they've always done.
Right.
That they don't really know any different. And in talking to my Uncle Mark, one of the things that really impressed him, which to me was just kind of natural, was, he was really impressed that Matthew and I just pulled up stakes and moved to Nashville 25 years ago.
Yeah. It's been 25 years. Wow.
That took a lot of courage. And to me, it's like, well, with going through what we've gone through in our lives and all the peaks and valleys of that, we've got a lot of proof around us in our lives that we're not guaranteed every single day, or any day at all, to be, for that matter. You might as well surround yourself by like-minded people and beauty and build yourself a home that is a home that, honestly, you feel okay being sequestered in when you're under house arrest for a year.
Yeah.
It's kind of one of those things.
And you guys are also doing cameos, which, I see a lot of artists and celebrities doing that. What's the weirdest request you've gotten to do?
Oh, my gosh.
Please.
I don't know if I should tell you this.
Oh, you have to. You have to now.
Oh, my gosh. Okay, you asked for this.
All right, good.
Okay, I got a cameo request a couple weeks back that I thought I was being punked, and I don't know, I might have been. But it was a serious request. And it was from a gentleman who wanted me to sing him one of my songs dressed in nothing but a Speedo.
Stop it.
You can't make this stuff up.
Did you do it?
No, I didn't. Matthew did.
Oh my!
Just kidding.
I was going to say, is that real?
No, but the request was real. The follow through was not. But you asked me a question. It was very specific. What is the weirdest cameo request? That's the strangest one to date.
Oh my God! I can only imagine. I really.
Oh my gosh! It takes all kinds. What can I say? But a cameo is really cool. It's another one of those things that we all do during this strange downtime. And, it's really kind of neat because, they're short, but, do birthday messages, Christmas messages, anniversary things. Not a lot of other people do this, but Matthew and I have decided to sing songs for people, like on demand.
Oh, wow.
So, like, if you have a favorite song of ours or something, we'll sing it just for you. And, we'll even do things that occasionally they're really campy, like, change some of the words to have your name in it and stuff like that.
That's so fun.
And it's really nice. Even though it's indirect, it allows us to feel connected with the fans. And it's also kind of neat for them, too, because, it kind of plays on that whole VIP experience thing that, a lot of bands were doing when they were out touring.
Right.
But this is, even when you do like a meet and greet with bands like we were doing, I mean, we've always prided ourselves for 35 years. We met everybody after shows, and obviously times have changed a little bit. But even when you do like a private meet and greet with folks, like the VIPs at a casino gig or something like that, if you're lucky, you get like 20 seconds where you get to shake a hand and, trade thank yous and take a quick picture, and then they move you off. Cameo is so much more personal than that.
Yeah.
You actually get our time, and you get, our care. And, a lot of times, some of my favorite Cameo requests are if somebody's a little down or if somebody's had a setback or something. I'm most flattered when I get a Cameo request from somebody that just wants a pick-me-up, and they want a little encouragement that they can watch over and over and over again if they're having any of those days where they're feeling a little down. To me, that's actually really the most motivating. So, I get to do that.
That is, really, that is so fun. I can only imagine. That's just, I think that's really cool.
Well, thanks. Thanks. I think it's cool too.
Now, you recently said, be good to yourself, realize there's always hope, you're in control of your emotions, and you're nobody's victim, and nobody puts baby in a corner. There's nothing like a Dirty Dancing quote from Gunnar Nelson. I love that.
Well, hey, it's pretty darn appropriate, don't you think?
I do.
We're living in a world right now where, man, you're not even allowed. You're shamed if you show your face. Okay, so I want you to think about, like, emotionally, what kind of toll that's going to take on people over a prolonged period of time. Human beings are social creatures. Okay, we only go crazy. The person that goes crazy is going to be that person on the deserted island. They could be in paradise, but if they don't have any connection, any human connection, they really do go stir crazy. There is such a thing as island fever. That is why being isolated in prison, in solitary confinement, is such an effective deterrent to anybody who's been in it. Because on the one hand, you go, well, at least no one's going to be bothering me. Oh, yeah, we'll try it for 3 years, or let alone 3 months. It's horrifying because our nature is to be social creatures, to interact, to minister to each other, to support each other, to compete with each other, to push each other. All of those things, that's what we're designed to do. There's interplay involved in that. So if you take that away from us, you take that ability away from us, what happens is great. Yeah, you can TikTok all day long. You can do that, and it's great for a month or two. And then what? And then you realize in no short order that you're affected in not a great way. So all I was trying to tell people is that if you keep that in mind, and you keep in mind that no one can make you a victim unless you give them permission for anything that we're going through. Sure, we might have challenges that we have to pivot with and do, but you're the one that allows the jailer to have the key if you decide to do that. Okay, and it's important to know that you have the key to get out of your cell anytime you choose. That's really important. At least it is for me. There's going to be a bunch of people out there that, some people in my family in particular that, they're really happy to give a jailer the keys and lock them up forever so they don't have to make any decisions. That's not me. And it's really not anybody that I hang out with personally feels that way. That doesn't mean I don't meet people like that on the road all the time. But, it's kind of like a one-man mission to get people out of that defeating mental and emotional state. Because what it does, man, it just makes life more fun if you think about it. I mean, there's a lot of stuff in life that's a drag, don't get me wrong. And I'm not being milquetoasty or Pollyanna about this whole thing. I know life can be a bitch sometimes. I'm not saying that. But if the stimulus is always going to be the same no matter what, okay, why not choose to actually have a good time in the process or find something positive out of every single situation if, again, your external stimulus is going to be the same? And that's all I'm just trying to say. All I'm trying to say is if you actually embrace that concept, that you can actually change your emotional state, your perception of the challenges that life throws at you, and find some good in any of that. Much like, shit, I got locked up for a year, but I learned how to play guitar. That's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
If you can do that, you know what? It gives you a compelling future to move forward to, rather than just kind of I mean, we all see people on the streets every single day, and in the course of our life, where you just kind of like deep down inside, you don't want to be judgmental, but you kind of go, God, when did that person quit? What happened? What was the day that person just decided, I'm going to stop caring, starting with myself. I'm just going to give up. And I want to eliminate as many of those mornings for people as I possibly can, if I can.
Well, you're doing a great job. I have to say, I watch you and Matthew every time you guys put out a video. I'm glad I found the Good News with Gunnar, your positivity.
Oh, thank you.
Well, it's infectious, and it's important to be positive, and we appreciate everything that you and your brother do. And I'm sorry, but it just feels right that I had to include him in a lot of things I asked you, because you guys do a lot together, and you send these messages out together, and we absolutely appreciate it. Again, it's awesome to have your positive energy out there, and lots of love to you and your family and Matthews as well.
Well, hey, thank you so much. And hey, look, for everyone out there, look, I love everybody, and I think everybody should love everybody even when they're acting badly. So, we got this. We really do. We got this. We're coming out of the tunnel here, and I think in a lot of respect, if we keep the right things in mind, we're going to come out for the better. We really are.